Guys, girls, ladies and gentlemen, it's BTC Gambler here. Listen, I hope you're well. Well, we've got a lot to discuss this week. There's so many changes that are going on. Oh, I feel this is probably going to be one of the most important videos I'm ever going to do. I've got so much to show you. So many changes that have gone on. And then obviously we got hit with that bombshell today to say that tipping is going to be disabled on stakes. So obviously that's going to completely break and fundamental. The whole principle of Alphaverse is based around the ability to shift funds around. I don't know too much about it at this moment, but all I can say at the moment is don't panic. Let's not panic at the moment. You know, sometimes when the casinos say they do something, they only do it on the web front end, and the back end using API still works fine. I've emailed Eddie and I'm waiting for a response, but I'm already thinking of solutions already. The obvious one that comes to mind, instead of using the tip function, I could write some code that withdraws it to a central wallet somewhere and then have to think about the mechanics of putting it back. But that does mean that every account is going to have a wallet, which means there's the whole issue around verification that needs to be sorted out. But like always, guys, don't panic. Don't panic at this stage at the moment. We need to know what we're up against before we can make any radical decisions. I always say this to everybody, and this is true in these types of situations as we stand now. What we're doing is not a race. There's no rush. This is a marathon. It's not a race. In the light of the information that we got today, I'm going to do something, and I suggest you do the same as well. Right now, obviously, there's a risk. And if there's a risk, we need to do something about it. So what I've done, I've written this code here on the server under the change script, and what it's going to do is going to move to the Alphaverse folder, and it's going to move to the mount folder, and it's going to change the bust threshold. Now the reason I've got 2 is because I've got some on 20 bust threshold and some on 25. So anyway, but I want them all set to -1 so that when I restart the client it's not in a bust state. And then I'm going to restart the client, restart the client, and then I'm going to use this command called shift funds. So I'm going to take out all the money that's there now, just in case, guys, and I suggest you do the same. The command shift funds will shift whatever you got in your vault and in your balance, and you're going to send it to one address. So I'm going to send it to this account, which is obviously blurred out for you guys, which is going to be in this account here. Now I set the script to have a random wait time between 0 seconds and 500 seconds, so just over 8 minutes, because if they all get sent at the same time, I don't think they won't like that. So technically all I should need to do is just click this button here, and they're all going to go bugger up, they're going to break, and yeah, I'm going to grab a coffee and I'll be back. This will be a rare sight for you guys. Like, I've drained down everything. Every account has got nothing in it. And I'm going to send that to my main account. That should disappear. And we're going to have a completely empty Alphaverse. And I highly suggest that you guys do the same. And if you want that script, just message me. Just till we know what is going on, because the last thing I'd want for you is to be stuck with money on Alphaverse that you can't get out. We've been given a warning. Take this opportunity while you can. Withdraw, do a drain down. Because this does lead nicely into where I wanted to really take this video, because that was a bit of a sidekick thing today that I did not expect. I did not expect to be saying to you today, drain down your Alphaverse. But at least you know how to do it now. Now, thankfully, we got that button working. Now, if you haven't got that button working, you need to run a git pull. And if you do run a git pull, make sure that you have actually done a backup of your client config and your server config. Otherwise, yeah, you'll have difficulty getting the accounts back. It'd just be a nightmare for you. But we're going to cover some of that today, because one thing I love about this community, because we are a collective set of like-minded people. We want to share knowledge. And I love it in the Discord. There's some really great ideas floating around. We've been working on various codes. So I've been quiet over the last week because I've been so busy writing and fixing. I've identified that there were some fundamental issues that were broken with Alphaverse that prevented it from going into what we call simulation mode, and that's what we're going to set up today. And the reason behind we wanted simulation mode is because there was various flavors of strategies that are going around that was first started off with this idea of infinity code. It was a dual code, and it was version 3, and it was designed not to win, not to lose, and just to wager, with the ambition was to try to reach 1,000 wagered per week per account to get all of the full VIP perks, and you get paid for the VIP perks and not through winning on the casino. And there was some great innovation that went on within the community. Femisex did a great job of modifying that code, and we went to version 4 where not only did it sort of exceed the amount of wagering that I did do, but it actually made it quite a decent profit as well. That was almost like a win-win scenario. I have to say I ran that for I think 3 days doing very, very well, and then I got hit with a massive loss, and I think I lost like 45,000 TRX in that process, and I was like, God, completely stop this. It was really great what was being produced. It was a lot more exciting, produced a lot more profit, you produced a lot more wagering, but it came along with a much, much greater risk. I then come along with what we call version 5, which is now on version 6 now. And here's version 6. If you did a git pull, you'll see it's there. It's called the Infinity Code Dual Game V6. Now, there was an idea that was floating around that was really so interesting that it was well worth exploring, and it come along with a whole bunch of question marks, which may well be really pertinent to the situation that we're going to be in right now, because I'm thinking to myself, my gosh, this is so perfectly timed. You couldn't have made this up. This version of code, and we had version 5 as well, which I'm not even bothering. There was loads of problems with it, but the thinking is, rather than chasing losses, the infinity code, this dual code, the way it works is it wagers 99% win chance on dice. So here's a do bet function here. So right, apologies for the non-coders out there, guys, but I think it's really important to understand this so you can see the code. It isn't that difficult. It's just a series of high-level commands that syntactically need to be correct. However, the logic is there. So the do bet function is saying we switch between the game of dice and we switch between the game of and Dragon Tower as well. And we do that using stages. So we say, for example, here when we set a stage, there are functions. So we say set stage 1. It sets stage 1 and it sets the game to dice. So there's a variable that in there that says game equal dice. If we set the stages 2, the game is set to Dragon Tower, and if it's set to 3, which is just a cleansing phase, is also set the game to dice. So let's walk through the logic of this particular game here. I've written this out because I wanted to run, and I'll show you the reason why I've done this in a moment. At the moment, I set it to run 6,000 bets. And that's just a line of code I put in there because I wanted to run a comparison. One of the challenges I've been working on over the last week, near enough, well, maybe the last 4 days, is to try to rewrite this code in simulation, because there are variations of this code could become very, very interesting. And rather than risk any real money, what I wanted to do was to actually simulate this. And so you'll see in a minute, there was a sim version of the game, which is also in your, if you run a git pull, and it's this one here, which is a simulation of this, which picks up from the client config to say that it's going to run 6,000 bets. And what I wanted to do, and I'm going to show you today the results of those, can we accurately recreate the game? Okay, because trust me, this was not easy. This was really been a challenging thing to do. Now, apologies about the code, but I just want to go back to explain the logic of the game for the instance's purposes. When this goes live, before you see this video, I'll probably be a version 7 where there won't be a max bets. It will just bet as normal, okay? The basic function of the game, in stage 1, we set the game as dice, and it set the win chance to 99%. Yep, makes sense. So, and then it runs a bet. It runs a bet, and it runs the bet on the base bet, and the base bet has been set to 0, lowest possible per min amount is the balance divided by that. That works out to be 0.0003 of 1 TRX if it's in TRX. If it's in a different currency, it'd be It seems to be the lowest possible bet you can do. But these are the figures that we're going to play around with. Okay, so it's going to send a bet, and if it wins, it goes back to base bet, which is that. And if it loses, it sets stage 3 and returns. And when it said say set stage 3, it's going to change the game to dice again. And if we look down the code here, it says if stage equals 3, it's just basically doing one bet until it gets one win. Does that make sense? So as soon as you get one win, but it's doing 0 bets at this stage. What this is doing is clearing down that previous bet. So the previous bet could carry over a large figure. If you don't do this, you just have to take my word for this. This was absolutely necessary. It's like a cleansing stage. Yep, and then immediately goes back into, once it's finished, it then says go to stage 2. And if we look at stage 2 says the game is Dragon Tower. And then we look at Dragon Tower. What Dragon Tower is doing, it's playing, it first starts off with 0 bets until it's looking for one loss. And as soon as it hits one loss, it goes in big, like 12 times the base bet. And then it uses 2.042 as a multiplier, so it martingales until it gets the win. 99 times out of 100, you get a win. But this is the big change, and this is the bit that I really wanted to bring to your attention. We thought, well, maybe why not, instead of actually just chasing losses all the time, why don't we just accept losses? Why don't we just accept the loss? Okay, and if it goes beyond 6, we just go, oh, stuff it. Accept that lost, withdraw the vault so the balance stays the same, and then carries on betting. It goes back to stage 1 and it does that way. So 99 times out of 100 it doesn't hit the 6 loss, but when it does hit the 6 loss, it goes back. And so this idea being is that you don't actually need a recovery pot. You know, this is like, we're not chasing big losses anymore, and this was a really fantastic and great idea, and this is what I really loved about the community. So I've been spending this last week trying to code this in simulation so that, you know, there's so many variations that we can put on this, because I've tested it and I'm going to show you my test results. So before we move on, I'm going to show you guys. So here, this was an account that I ran the real code. I run the real version of code. I'm just going to double check the version of the code on there with the version of the code that's actually in Visual Studio Code, because I'm feeling they might have made some changes, but I'll double check that before I go live, just because as I was going through it, I was questioning some of the things in there. But fundamentally, if you run it for real, based on the principle that you're betting at the lowest possible bet amount, you're stage 1, you're running dice at 99% win chance, and every time you lose, you go back to Dragon Tower, and then you hunt for one loss, and then you're going really big, and then and you try to regain your losses that way. Then you go back to stage 1. You can make a small profit, and then if it goes to Dragon Tower, if it exceeds 6 losses, it goes, stuff that, I'm not bothered with that, I'm just going to go back to stage 1, and if there's any money in the vault, I'll withdraw it. So it would keep the balance going. And so when I run it, I run 6,000 test bets multiple times, and this was easy because obviously betting for real was very, very easy. And the reason I've been so quiet is, you know, look at the bits that are really important here. So first and foremost is the amount of profit that it did make on 6,000 bets was 0.98 on this example. It did in total 5,734 bets in dice and 266 bets in Dragon Tower. Now I ran that multiple times, and that will vary quite a bit. Sometimes only 100 bets in Dragon Tower, because the sample size is too small. 6,000 bets is far too small. And then if we look at the Dragon Tower, even though here you can see the Dragon Tower bets was only 100, but the numbers match up with this 6,000 bets in simulation. So we're using a random server seed, we're using a random client seed, and I do want to prove to you guys that, you know, the lengths that we go to, because the bet results are here. So if I go to Provably Fair, I don't know if that's too small. Should we make that bigger? So we could see here what we're looking at. Obviously, we're looking at the server seed, the client seed, and obviously the nonce position. The nonce position there. So the last bet was 88.62. Can you see that there? So 88.62. So if we go down, the next one should be 22.83, which it is. The next one should be 40.30. It is 46.66. It is. You get the drift. 16.3, yeah, 16.37.13, and you can just go through these. All I'm telling you guys is this is results come from the API server that I run on my simulated casino, not on Stakes Casino. It was so important for me to make sure that the simulation is truly simulating the real bet conditions. You know, that's why I've been a little bit quiet over the last few days, because this has been a bit of a bitch to code. But I really love the idea of this whole idea of just like, fuck it, lose, don't chase the loss, and let's play around with the figures. And that's kind of where we are at this stage right now. I've got to the stage now where I'm very, very comfortable. And after many simulations, the real betting versus simulation betting was pretty darn well close. That gave me the confidence to say that actually this simulation is a very good simulation of real betting, and I wouldn't want to move forward with any sort of simulation betting and testing ideas out before I could verify that I was confident with the simulation results. And that's why I've been busy for the last few days, is writing that bloody code. That has been problematic. It also identified that there was a fault on the server. If you sent in a malformed balance amount, you could crash the server. I wasted so many hours of my life trying to fix a problem that wasn't a problem because I didn't realize the server had bloody crashed. I couldn't get the client connect. My gosh, I have changed a lot. But obviously, you know, Alphaverse is quite old in terms of software now, and a lot of the software and the dependencies really needed updated. Like things like Punycode is becoming obsolete, and so that I needed to do a lot of updates. Yeah, and I've had to put some fixes in place because I couldn't, along with doing this code, I was also trying to fix Alphaverse as well, because I could not get Alphaverse working in simulation mode. And the only way I can do that is with a bunch of series of updates that were updated in Alphaverse, and there has literally been a number of them. And there'll be things like, there's a fix here, okay, that gets applied, that's added to the package.json file. New stuff here, like, yeah, there's been changes to the client index.js, and there's been changes to the server index.js as well. Yeah, there's just been a bunch of updates. And if you was to run a git pull now, and we're going to do that on one of the bots, which should be able to demonstrate what you need to do, and we should be able to get it working in simulation mode. So I'm just going to double check a couple of things here. Like, persevere with me, guys, because it's really important, this video. You know, getting this bit right, I think it's going to give us the foundation to be able to move forward with something. And obviously, with regards to tipping, I mean, that's a really huge deal. I'm hoping before this video goes live that I will get a response back from Eddie on that. I'm kind of hoping it will still work using API, but if it doesn't, we will find a solution. And it's stuff like this where this sort of code doesn't require a recovery pot. Yeah, it's just going to make life a lot easier. Obviously, getting the money out will be a challenge. We will fight one battle at a time, okay? One battle at a time. Right, bear with me. I'm going to double check a few things. Right, what I've done is just, I want to show you the simulation in action, because when we run it, right, I'm going to run the dice, but I forgot it was paused, guys. So I've had a delay just to double check, doing 10,000 bets. And you see how fast this runs. We should better see that, actually. Yeah. It'd be the only bot that's running. It's super quick. Gonna go for 10,000 bets very fast. And I think it's finished now. We go back to the code. Yeah, it took 33 seconds to run 10,000 bets. So the challenge now is about playing around with parameters and setting these up. So I'm going to go through the process of how you can set up simulation in your environment. Yeah, we'll take it from there, okay? Because we're going to play around with these figures. All right, let me get myself prepared and I'll bring you back. Right, the way I'm going to do this, guys, I've got this one client here, which we're going to convert. This is out of date. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through the steps manually. I'm going to keep a log of the commands that I'm running in a notepad. and then I should be able to update all of my Alphaverse in one go. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to go to the root folder. I'm going to copy my client config, Alphaverse Live. So that should copy my client config to the root folder, and if we do the same for the server config. And just to be sure, if we do an ls, we should see there the server config is where it is and the client config is where it is. And from this stage here, I'm confident I could run rm-rf, and what that would do is this would completely delete Alphaverse. So let me put that in Notepad. Right, I'm going to pull down Alphaverse again using the get clone command. This will ask for the username and password. I'll put these in. Yeah, bring you back when I've done it. For those that already have the username, their own username and password, I will show you, if you speak to me, send me a message, a one-line command where you can actually embed the username and password into the get clone command. So if you wanted to automate this, you can do it. But for the purpose of testing here, I'm just going to manually put it in. Okay, that's done. So we should be able to see the Alphaverse Live. Now if we look at the package.json file, there's been a load of additions, including this one here where it's got a post install, and this is to do with the Punycode error that's been, a load of stuff needed updated. All of these dependencies have been updated to the latest versions. Alphaverse was a long way out of date. So I'm just going to continue with the build, just going to, as if you was building again. So you've got to reconfigure the store credentials, already up to date. So it's already cached those anyway, that's good. And then, we need to run a yarn install. And this is going to update all of those updated dependencies and the packages and the Punycode fix and all these things I needed to do to get the simulation working on the client. Okay, right, and there's a few other commands which are going to be completely new to you. Right, we're going to run this new command, which is going to install a tool that's going to help us to check to make sure the dependencies are up to date. So you'll see this in a moment. Okay, that's installed a neat little tool, because now if I run a command called NCU, it go off and check to see if there's any dependency in updated. Literally from the point I've done this, there's been an update. So I could run an NCU. And it's important we do this before we do the npm install, because it's not going to install the dependencies till we do an npm install. So it's going to update it now, so it should say version 3.03. So if we nano the package.json file, see it's been updated. It was 3.02, now it's 3.03. So that command ncu-u updates it. The ncu checks, and you can see we're 100% okay now. Now we can do an npm install, knowing that we're fully up to date. It's a neat little tool. We are fully patched, fully up to date. They were literally fully patched. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to move back my client config, move the server config as well, and then I'm going to move rather than copy. That's the client config done. Like I said, the reason we do it line by line, guys, is so that we can actually we can script this and do it in every server automatically. Now I'm going to make one change off screen, which is I'm going to change this client so that in the client config I'm going to set the simulation mode to true, and I'm going to set the bets to 10,000. So I'm going to just use WinSCP to do that. But what I show you what I'm going to do here. So under the client config, I'm going to change simulation mode to true, and I'm going to set the total simulated bets to 10,000, because that's going to represent 1 hour's run, and then we can have a play around with these figures. Okay, we can have a play around with the code that we're going to run, but we need to get everything up in simulation mode first. Yeah, and one final thing I did as well, I set the bus threshold to -1. Mine set to -1. A couple of more commands we need to do. Obviously, we need to chmod plus x. None of the bash scripts will be executable if we don't do this, and chmod on the Alphaverse app image. So I'll just copy those commands. So obviously what I'm going to do on the desktop of this particular client, I'm going to just start the Alphaverse agent. So it'd be bin start Alphaverse agent. Just make sure we got session cookie. Now if all has gone well, we should be able to run Alphaverse. if all gone well, they should launch simulation, because the client config's been set simulation true, set to 10,000 bets, and the API server is running. It is, it's brick type, it's in simulation mode, guys, it's in simulation. Let's go into the dice bot. Yeah, perfect. Oh, the total number of bets is wrong now, so yeah, this is sitting there paused at the moment. Obviously, yeah, the game always starts paused. I need to change the number of bets. Bear with me, guys. And the dice bot running. Total bets is 10,000. So it's sitting there waiting for me to press start. It'd be this counter here with 100 on the balance. Yeah, it's this one here. So when I click play, it's going to start gambling. There we go. Now, believe it or not, that may seem like trivial to you, but that has taken me days to fix this. There were fixes on the client side and fixes on the server side. I mean, they've been long overdue. So now we have a really solid foundation to actually test ideas and concepts. And I really want to sort of throw this back to you guys now. Like, so in that process, we created a neat little script. So, you know, I could copy that over to the server bin folder, and then in Alphaverse, just click the one button and update all of them. Now, and obviously to do that, I need to make a change to this command here. So it's got embedded the username and password in order for that to really work. But I could get this Alphaverse fully set up running on in simulation mode. But before, there's no point me doing that at the moment, because it's about choosing the strategy. Now, the ideas that were floating around, now I did some rough calculations. So 10,000 bets is a good yardstick because it works out to be 1 hour's play, but in effect. And when I was doing my calculations prior to all of this, my suggestion was that, yeah, in order to be effective, that 1 hour needs to be wagering about 50 TRX. Okay, so we need a lot of tweaking. We've got a load of scope. I'm betting at the lowest possible bet amount as it stands at the moment, with the idea that you don't need a recovery pot, and I can tweak these numbers and I can test ideas with absolutely no risk because we're running with simulated funds. I've got no funds in my Alphaverse at all at the moment. They've all been shifted out, and the only balance that you'll see in there will be just simulated balance. From this, we can tinker with play around with the settings within the code to try and get it up to 50. So where we are at the moment, I mean, this was on 6,000 bets. That's 2.4 wager. So this is done 10,000. Yeah, and this wagered 3. Yeah, that's the account now. 3 TRX. Obviously nowhere near much. So we don't need to bet at the minimum amount because I was just testing. I was just testing to make sure that the results of this real betting reflect the simulation betting, and now sort of the real work starts, and this is where we work as a community. I will have a stab at a couple of ideas and run them by you, and I'm going to make some permutations. I'm going to try different variations of this, knowing obviously I'm risking no money. My goal is to get that up to 50 TRX wagered within 1 hour with an acceptable level of risk, knowing that we can't crash because every 6 losses in a row we just forego that loss. No longer do we need recovery pot. Right, let me have a play around with a few settings and I will come back to you. Okay, crunch the numbers, guys, and listen, I want you to stay around in this video because there are other things I want to show you after I've done this, okay? Because I'm doing my bit here and I'm going to hand it back to the community and we're going to work together on this, okay? But there's something else. There's a couple other things I want to show you before we move on. But first off, let's discuss this. We knew that in the last simulation run it made 3 TRX wagered amount, and we're looking to get to 50 and 10,000 bets. So that's 16.6666 times more. So if I'd rounded it up to 17, if we took the base bet, which is 0.003, and times that by 17, we need to change the base bet to 0.0051. But we're going to be very mindful of the fact that when we get to, so I've changed it here, the base bet to 0.0051 based on that maths. But when we get down to the code, Right, we're going to go into the dicebot code. We're just going to stop it. And this, I think this change is going to have a profound impact. It's going to be paused. Let's unpause it. Here we go. Let's watch it. Yeah, it's not doing so well at the moment. It's making a loss. It's this one here. The wager's gone up. Amazing. So it's done it. So the maths was good, guys. The maths was good. However, we need to change the formula a bit because we obviously can't run out of loss. So I'm going to throw this back at you guys. I'm going to update the code with this version that I've got here, and you'll see it under Visual Studio when you do a get pull. If you saw it, wherever it is, it's going to be called, yeah, this one here, dual code sim v2. All I ask is that if you're going to play around with this, play around with this version, please. So just use this to play around with the settings. So I'm going to try a few possible permutations, but I'm keen to get this video out to you guys, and I'm going to play around with these figures here because I'm going to set my whole Alphaverse up in simulation mode. So yeah, and I'm going to have a tinker around with these. But I really love the idea, you know, and it's about finding the right balance now. Love the idea. Stop chasing losses. After 6 losses in a row, we need to set a few targets. And I think some really good targets that were thrown at me. One is that it would be good if we could make $1 per hour per account. I mean, obviously this strategy isn't the right one, but we can play around with the settings and have a look at it. And we need to be wagering 50 TRX per hour as well. So they're the 2 sort of metrics that we want to get to. So while I'm here, there's another piece of code that I wanted to show you, which is this code here, the Dice Next Level Wager. So I've said before, and I've said in multiple instances, if you've got any accounts at any level at 90% or more of the way to the next VIP level, and as you can see, just over the last few days, I've done 1, 2, 3, 4 at no cost. At no cost to me whatsoever, guys. Okay, so the rule of thumb is 90% no matter which VIP level. And what you do is you use the calculator here. So say, for example, that you're on bronze VIP, and let's say you're at 91% of the way to the next level. That means you've got 3,600 to wager. If you've got 3,600 to wager, we could look at the atomic. We put in there 3,600 in there. That is 31,708. So if we round that up to say 37,100. 37,100. That's how much TRX you need to wager. So you can then go back into the code, 37,100. I've made it as easy as possible for you guys. And you set here your target, 37,100. Now you can adjust this accordingly to whatever currency you're going to be using. Okay, so you can just, you guys are smart if you're using a different currency. But I've set this up for TRX, but there's no reason why this can't be changed to any other currency. You just adjust them accordingly. And all this is going to do is just going to wager at 99% win chance. I've put in there lots of switch over unders, and I see some crazy, long win streaks. And what you should expect, yeah, just throwing some numbers around here. So we could say there's 37,000 bets that need to be done. 37,100 TRX need to be wagered. Each bet is doing 8 TRX as defined within the code. So that's basically $1. So we can say we need to do 4,637.5 bets to wager 37,000. So when we round that up, we expect to achieve around about 46 losses. You know, if it goes beyond, above or below that, then that's out of statistical normality. And so this number here should be estimated loss amount, 371. They pay out about 480 on average when you go from bronze to silver. They pay out even more when you get to gold. But what I'm saying is that I can assure you, I have done this many times, any account in Alphaverse 90% or more below to the next level, just use this code to get it up to the next level, because it would cost you nothing. And obviously that's really important, because one of the things that impacts is how much you get back on a weekly basis. Now the final piece of this video I want to put together just before I hand this over to you, because I think it's obviously keen to get this video finished and keen to get it over to you guys, because I want to work together. I want to work us together as a team on this. We need to go back to the server side. So when we look on the server side, obviously if you're going to run simulation mode, now you're going to have to run get pull and update on all those commands that I ran earlier. So if I did NCU here, I'm fully up to date. I'm fully patched. Yeah, if you followed my guide earlier, so when you run a get pull, there are two flavors of the package.json file. And I couldn't think of any other way to do this actually. So anyway, there's one there for the client and there's one there for the server. And the reason they're two different ones, because they have different requirements. And really heavyweight is Puppeteer. Puppeteer is takes up a lot of resources. We use that for headerless browser connections when we run the get IPs, when you run a VPN, so it connects into your Alphaverse and extracts the IP addresses list. And I can show you that on mine. Actually, I couldn't show you in that because you have to take my word for that. That is working, because obviously I've added loads of logs in there and it showed the username and password, and I can't share that anymore. But the screen dash get IPs is working fine for me. That wasn't working. I had to run a whole bunch of updates, and some of you may be having trouble getting that working as well. And the screen dash R API server, which is what you have to be running if you want to run simulation mode. Now all of those, if you do an ls under the bin, you can see there's a restart server, which you're probably familiar with. There's a restart API server if you want, and you need to run that. If you want to run simulation mode, you need to restart the API server, and you should be able to, when you run it, when you do screen dash R API server, you should have multiple listeners. Now it's been set up, the code has been set to cluster, so the more CPUs you throw at this, the faster it runs. So I run mine with 8 CPUs and 8 gigs of RAM. So you should see 8 workers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that, I need that because I've got so many bots. Right, and the other news, I just suppose one final piece of news, which is still early days at the moment, and I will formalize this later on. Obviously we need to overcome this big looming issue that's coming at us at the moment, which is if we cannot use chat tip function anymore, there's going to have to be a fundamental redesign on some of the components and how money shifted around on Alphaverse, or if it's needed at all. But even getting money out of accounts is just going to be a complete and utter bitch of a task. But one of the things I'm going to be offering is hosting services, and I will probably do a separate video about that. I've got 3 people already that want me to host their Alphaverse for them. I'm making the price structure very simple. It's $75 for the management PC, which has got everything you need in it: multi-party manager, virtual box, Microsoft Office. It's going to have everything on there: WinSCP, Zen Center, so you can manage your virtual machines. It basically exactly the same as my setup, so I've got full control of everything. I need to take a physical trip down the data center to make some changes, so I've got complete network isolation on that, and security is going to be a really key part of that. So I'm charging £75 for the management PC, but merely $6 per month for each client. and that's going to be with 2 virtual CPUs, 2 gigs of RAM and 30 gigs of hard disk space. And yeah, that also comes bundled with the PIA account, so you don't even need to buy VPN licenses. So $6 a month on the client. So I'm not looking to make money on these really, I just want you guys up and running. You know, the reason the desktop is so expensive is because I have to pay Microsoft and Citrix for the licenses, and they're not cheap. Yeah, so I have to buy them. So anyway, so work is needed, code needs refining. We're really up in the air at the moment when it comes to know where we are with stake. I highly suggest you do what I've done, which is drain down and take your money out while you can take it out, because there's a huge black mark and a risk saying at the moment. I would hate it for some of you guys to have money stuck on the casino and not being able to get it out. Take it out while you can take it out, because the only way we've been able to take it out is by using tip function. And if that's been removed, yeah, that's fundamentally going to change a lot of things, and we won't really know until these changes come into effect. And by the way, I took the weekly, made about $800 profit, so yeah, if you was interested. Right, as always, my videos has a lot to take in, and I appreciate all of you that stuck around this far, and always comments, feedback. It's completely mandatory, guys. If you want me to produce more videos, I need more feedback. Sometimes I feel like I'm shouting into an echo chamber, and and I do wonder to myself, am I doing these videos for nothing? Hardly anybody watches them. 100 views, 100 fucking views. So if you want me to make these videos, you need to let me know. I mean, I probably get a handful of comments as well. It's like, if I don't get it, I feel like I'm wasting my time, and then so I stop producing them. So if you want me to continue to make videos, I need feedback, guys. I really need it. We're all humans at the end of the day. Right, so that concludes the video, and I look forward to talking to you all on Discord, and I'll speak to you all again very, very soon.